Hello students, welcome to KENE'S Educare, a group of KENE solutions. This is part 4 of lesson number 5, the fundamental unit of life. Okay, so in the last part we have discussed about the different components that the cell have. Now what are these different components? Like we have discussed on the plasma membrane, which is also called as the cell membrane, right? And the second component that we have discussed on is the cell wall. So all the cells, they have a rigid cell wall which is protective in nature. Okay, because cell wall, it is tough and rigid, so it protects the cell from, you can say, harmful things entering the cell. ओके, तो हमने सेल मेम्ब्रेन पे डिस्कस किया है. वी हैव डिस्कस्ड ऑन दिस एज वेल, cell wall as well. Now, in the last class, we have even started discussing on the nucleus, where we came across the plant cell and the animal cell, right? And as I already told you, the differentiating points between the plant cell and animal cell in the part 1 itself, I hope you are aware of about the differentiating point with respect to nuclear membrane. So prokaryotes जो है and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes do not have a well-developed nuclear membrane, whereas eukaryotes have a well-developed nucleus membrane. But before that, as we are studying on this lesson, fundamental unit of life, what you should know is, you should know basically what a cell is. Right? So we have started this lesson itself by discussing on a cell theory that was given by Robert Hooke, sir. Now, who was Robert Hooke? Robert Hooke is a, like, ही इज़ द वन जिन्होंने सेल को डिस्कवर किया है इन द ईयर 1665, एंड ही said that cell is the structural and functional unit of life and no life can exist without cell. So cell becomes a very vital and a very important discovery, because life even cannot exist without this cell. So these cells are very much important for us. And when Robert Hooke sir was doing his research on this, he found that the structure of the cell was somewhat peculiar, or it was resembling the structure of the honeycomb. Now, because we know that honeycomb has different little compartments all together, right? So he was resembling the structure of this honeycomb with the cork. Now, what is a cork? Cork is a substance that we get from the bark of the tree, the brown part of the tree that we have. That is the bark of the tree, and from that, like he was resembling that, it looks the same as cork. ठीक है? After that, we saw that, as I told you, that cell was first discovered by Robert Hooke sir in the year 1665, and cell is a word which is derived from, like, it is a Latin word which means little room. ठीक है? सेल क्या है? सेल एक लैटिन वर्ड है, इसका मतलब है लिटिल रूम. ओके, so cell represents the basic structural and functional unit of life, and it has different organelles which are present inside them. So what are these organelles? Organelles are small structure. क्या है organelle? These are small structure inside a cell with specific function. क्या है? Small structure inside a cell with a specific function. So organelles are present inside the cell itself, and there they need to perform specific function which is needed there. Okay, so all organisms, they are composed of one or more cell. तो सारे organisms कितने cell से बनते हैं? Either one or more cell से, and all the tissues and organs, they are also composed of cells. Tissues and organs means, tissue कैसे बनता है? See, a human body is all made up of cell. So when a group of cell come together, it makes up a tissue. So how are you going to define tissue? As a group of cell, when it comes together, it forms a tissue, and when a group of tissue comes together, it forms an organ. When a group of organ come together and perform the vital function, then that becomes the organ system. And once we have this organ system functioning together, we have a multicellular organism, and this multicellular organism is nothing but is a human being. Okay, So as I said that there is no life without cells, right? So this much what we have discussed about cells, I don't think so that अब आपको इसको mesmerize करने की ज़रूरत है. You don't need to rectify this, right? Because since we are doing the revision again and again, this should keep this should fit into your mind that Robert Hooke sir, he was the first one जिन्होंने सेल को डिस्कवर किया है. सेल एक लैटिन वर्ड से डिराइव हुआ है जिसका मतलब है लिटिल रूम. सेल रिप्रेजेंट करता है बेसिक स्ट्रक्चरल एंड फंक्शनल यूनिट ऑफ लाइफ. सेल के अंदर ऑर्गेनल्स हैं विच आर स्मॉल स्ट्रक्चर जो एक स्पेसिफिक फंक्शन परफॉर्म करता है सेल के अंदर. एंड देर इज नो लाइफ विदाउट द सेल. ओके. Then we discussed on this activity where we did an activity with respect to the onion peel. Onion peel लिया हमने inner side से, inner layer लिया onion का. फिर उसको हम watch glass में डालेंगे and that watch glass will contain water. Okay, so once we put that peel into the water, that peel को we have to take care that it is not folded or it is not getting dried, and that is the reason हम peel को वो watch glass में डालते हैं which has water into it. Now we have to take that pill on the glass slide that we are having. Pill को glass slide पर डालने के बाद we have to put a drop of saffron in solution to it. ठीक है. और फिर उसके ऊपर हमें कवर स्लिप रखना है, बट वी हैव टू टेक केयर कि जब हम कवर स्लिप रखते हैं उस टाइम देयर शुड बी नो एयर बबल विच विल कम इन कॉन्टैक्ट विद दैट. ओके, सो वी शुड टेक केयर ऑफ दैट एंड उसमें बबल ना आए इसीलिए वी हैव टू यूज़ अ माउंटिंग निडल. तो आप पिल के ऊपर माउंटिंग निडल को रखोगे एंड देन यू आर गोइंग टू प्लेस दैट कवर स्लिप सो दैट नो bubbles should form there. And then we have this temporary mount of onion peel which is ready with us, which we can visualize it under high power and low power microscope, compound microscope. And this is what the cell of the onion peel look like. So you will see that there are many cells which are present along with the nucleus. Okay, so here one question was asked कि अगर हम different onion peels लेंगे अलग अलग sizes के, so will we get the same cells? So yes, you're going to get that same cell because all the cells they look similar to each other, and together when the cells they together they come and they form a onion bulb. Okay, so ये onion bulb जो है, if we are taking it of different sizes but they are having some similar, like whatsoever the reason may be, they are going to look similar under a microscope. Okay, so cells of onion peel they are all going to look the same regardless of कौन से size की onion आपने लिया था, peel लिया है. फिर the small structure that we see, that is the basic building unit of that onion bulb. Okay, then we saw that ये जो structure हमें देखने मिला है onion peel का, those structures are called as cells. And not only onions, but we have certain organisms in our surrounding. All the organisms that we observe in our surrounding, they are made up of cell. And ऐसा नहीं है that everywhere you will see that all the organisms are multicellular organisms. We even have a unicellular organism, that means they are single celled and they live their life on their own. Okay. आफ्टर दैट फिर से सेम चीज़ हमने सेम एक्सपेरिमेंट रिपीट किया था, बट हियर इंस्टेड ऑफ यूजिंग दैट अनियन शेप we have used the leaf, right? And this is the different cells of the human body which has been shown. Okay, so if we see this, okay, if we see this, the structure of the cell are so different, right? सेल का स्ट्रक्चर कितना ज़्यादा डिफरेंट है. सारे नर्व सेल्स हो गए, ब्लड सेल्स हो गए, स्मूथ मसल सेल्स हो गए, दे आर सो डिफरेंट फ्रॉम ईच अदर. सो द साइज एज वेल एज द शेप ऑफ द सेल वो किससे रिलेटेड होता है? इट इज़ बेस्ड ऑन व्हाट काइंड ऑफ फंक्शन दे आर परफॉर्मिंग. सो कुछ ऐसे सेल्स भी होते हैं जो अपना शेप ही चेंज करते रहते हैं, एंड इन सम केसेस इट हैपन्स कि सेल का साइज जो है वो फिक्स्ड है. ओके, फॉर एग्जाम्पल नर्व सेल अगर हम देखेंगे तो नर्व सेल का जो शेप है दैट इज फिक्स्ड, बट अमीबा इज एन एग्जाम्पल जो अपना शेप चेंज करता रहता है, राइट? सो ईच लिविंग सेल आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. ओके, तो यू विल सी दैट लिविंग सेल जो है दे हैव दैट कैपेसिटी where they can perform certain basic functions, and once they are performing these basic functions, All these functions become the characteristics of all living forms. All the living forms which exist on earth, they perform these basic functions together. Okay, so we in we human being or any of the multicellular organisms, we have division of labor which is present. It means हमारे body के अंदर अलग अलग parts हैं which are performing different functions altogether, right? So this is called as division of labor, and the same kind of division of labor is present in यूनिसेल्युलर और सिंगल सेल ऑर्गेनिज्म एज वेल. ओके, तो यहाँ पे हर एक सेल के पास एक खुद का कंपोनेंट होता है, खुद का फंक्शन होता है परफॉर्म करने के लिए. एंड फॉर परफॉर्मिंग दैट स्पेसिफिक फंक्शन दैट द सेल हैज टू परफॉर्म, it has different internal organelles which are present within them. So each cell organelle is going to perform a specific function, like they are going to make a new material in the cell, they are going to clear up the waste material from the cell, and what all functions the cell needs to be done, it will be done by the cell organelles. Okay, so a cell is able to live and perform all its function because of the organelles which are present. So cells are like how it is living and how it is performing its function because of the organelles which are present. So these organelles, they are going to come together and they constitute the basic unit which we call it as cell. And it is very much interesting to know that all the organelles inside the cell, they are going to be the same in every organism, you can say. No matter what function the cell is going to perform, तो भी उसके अंदर जो organelles है वो same ही होंगे. No matter where you are going to find that organism, then to the organelles which are present inside the cell, that is going to be the same. That doesn't changes. Okay, now the second question that comes up to our mind, that what is the cell exactly made up of and what is the structural organization of the cell. So when you see the cell inside the microscope, you will come to know that there are three specific features that almost every cells are having, and those are called as plasma membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. So these are the most common feature of, or you can say, the organelle which are present inside the cell. So all the activities and the functions the cell has to perform, they are going to they are being done, all the functions are being performed by the cell because of this organelles only. Okay, so let us see how. So we first started discussing about the plasma membrane, which is also called as the cell membrane. So if you can see the diagram, see, this is the cholesterol level that we are having, this is the integral protein, this is the glycoprotein, this is carbohydrate, this is glycolipid, this is globular protein, then we have alpha helix protein, we have channel protein, we have peripheral protein. So these are the different kinds of proteins, fats and cholesterols which are present in the cell membrane ka layer. Okay, so cell membrane jo hai, that is the outermost covering of the cell. Cell membrane kya hota hai? It is the outermost covering of the cell, जो सेल के सारे कंटेंट को सेपरेट करता है उनके एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट से. इट मीन्स द इंटरनल एंड द एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट शुड बी सेपरेटेड फ्रॉम each other. So here we have this plasma membrane that allows or that permits the entry and exit of some material in and out of the cell. तो ये जो plasma membrane है जिसको हम cell membrane भी बोलते हैं, वो क्या करता है? It allows or it permits, like ये मटेरियल को सेल के अंदर जाने में भी हेल्प करेगा एंड मटेरियल को बाहर आने में भी हेल्प करेगा, एज वेल एज इट इज़ ऑल्सो प्रिवेंटिंग द मूवमेंट ऑफ सम अदर मटेरियल्स. सपोज I don't want something to enter inside my body, so I'm not going to eat that, right? So same way, हमारे cell के पास it has a organelle called as cell membrane, which is selectively permeable. The substance that the cell doesn't want, it is not going to allow that substance to enter the cell. Okay, तो अभी सेल कोई भी सब्सटेंस का मूवमेंट कैसे होता है इनसाइड द सेल और आउटसाइड द सेल. सो for gaseous exchange like carbon dioxide and oxygen, we have a process called as diffusion which occurs. What is diffusion? When there is a spontaneous movement of substance which is taking place from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. And remember this thing कि हमेशा ये higher से lower concentration में ही transfer होगा. Okay, then we call this process as diffusion process. After that, we saw कि जो substance है like carbon dioxide, that is the cellular waste that we are having, and since it is a cellular waste, it needs to be excreted out by our cell, right? तो अगर ये सेल के अंदर जाके एक्यूमुलेट कर जाता है कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, इंस्टेड ऑफ गोइंग आउटसाइड द सेल, इफ इट इज गेटिंग एक्यूमुलेटेड इनसाइड द सेल, सो क्या होगा, जो सेल का एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट है, बाहर का एनवायरनमेंट है, वहाँ पे कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कम होगा, राइट? सो एज आई टोल्ड यू कि क्या होगा, there is a spontaneous movement which takes place from region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration. So since there is high concentration of CO2 inside the cell, तो inside the cell से CO2 कहाँ जाएगा, बाहर जाएगा to the region of low concentration by the process of diffusion. Okay, thus you can see here that diffusion plays a very important role in gaseous exchange between the cell as well as the cell and its external environment. Okay, and not only carbon dioxide and oxygen they obey this law, water also obeys this law of diffusion. Okay, तो अगर gaseous exchange की बात हो रही है तो that takes place through diffusion, but if there is a movement of water molecule which needs to be taken through the selectively permeable membrane, then the water has to undergo this osmosis process. And osmosis में क्या होता है, there is a passage of water from a region of high concentration through a selectively permeable membrane. Now osmosis needs this selectively permeable membrane, and here it is going to move from high water concentration to low water concentration, and this movement is going to take place until an equilibrium is reached. जब तक equilibrium नहीं आता, inside the cell and outside the cell the concentration doesn't become equal, तब तक it is going to move. Okay, then we discussed on this hypertonic solution, isotonic solution and hypotonic solution. Now what happens during this hypotonic solution, what do you think? See, अभी सपोज मेरे पास एक मीडियम है विच इज सराउंडिंग द सेल, एंड वो मीडियम के अंदर देर इज हाई वाटर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन, मतलब आउटसाइड अभी बीच में एक सेल है एंड उसके बाहर का जो मीडियम है ना, वहाँ पे वाटर का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ज़्यादा है एज कम्पेयर टू इनसाइड द सेल. सो एज आई टोल्ड यू दैट वाटर ऑलवेज एंटर फ्रॉम हायर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन टू लोअर, सो बाहर वाटर का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ज़्यादा था, so now it is going to enter inside the water. So because the cell is getting more amount of water, the cell is going to swell up, right? So hypotonic solution में the cell is going to get more amount of water as it is not, as the outside environment is having more amount as compared to the cell, and this is called as hypotonic solution. Okay, अब isotonic solution क्या होता है, suppose सेल के पास जितना वाटर का अमाउंट है उतना ही सेल के सराउंडिंग में भी है. So here there will be no net movement of the water which you're going to see that comes across the cell membrane, and here we call this type of solution as isotonic solution. Okay, and lastly we have this hypertonic solution. अब hypertonic में क्या होगा, सेल के अंदर वाटर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ज़्यादा है एज कम्पेयर टू द सराउंडिंग. सो योर बिकॉज सेल के अंदर ज़्यादा है तो सेल को वाटर बाहर देना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज वाटर मूव्स फ्रॉम हायर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन टू लोअर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन. सो वाटर इज गोइंग टू मूव आउट फ्रॉम द सेल, दैट इज फ्रॉम हायर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन टू लोअर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन, एंड एज द वाटर इज मूव्ड आउट ऑफ द सेल, यहाँ पे क्या होगा, द सेल इज गोइंग टू श्रिंक, एंड दिस इज कॉल्ड एज हाइपरटोनिक सोल्यूशन. ओके, सो ऑस्मोसिस एक स्पेशल केस है डिफ्यूजन का, that takes place through a selectively permeable membrane, that is cell membrane. So this is what happens is hypertonic में cell shrink करता है because water from inside it goes outside the cell. Isotonic solution में there is no movement of the water because the amount of water inside the cell and the amount of water outside the cell is equal. So this is isotonic solution. And we have hypotonic solution जहाँ पे the water from cell goes outside the cell. Why? Because water cell के पास ज़्यादा, sorry, water from outside enters the cell, that is hypotonic solution. Okay, so I hope you are clear with this three types of solution. After that we have seen this two activity with respect to raisins and the egg shell, जहाँ पे हमने क्या किया, एग के केस में कि हमने एग का शेल जो है इसको निकाल दिया by treating it with dilute hydrochloric acid because the shell is mostly calcium carbonate. Okay, so now after removing the shell we are only left with a outer skin that encloses that egg, right? So अब हम क्या करेंगे, हम ये egg को अभी pure water में डालेंगे and we are going to observe it after 5 minutes. तो अब हम क्या observe करेंगे, that the egg is going to swell up. Now why it swell ups? Because एग के अंदर का जो वाटर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन था दैट वाज लेस देन आउटसाइड कॉन्सेंट्रेशन. तो बाहर से सारा पानी हैज़ एंटर्ड इनसाइड द एग. So that occurs through the process of osmosis. Now secondly what we are going to do, हम deshelled egg को concentrated solution salt solution में रखेंगे 5 मिनट and then we are going to observe it and आप देखोगे कि shell shrink कर जाएगा because water inside the egg was more as compared to the concentrated salt solution. So water passes out of the egg into the salt solution and because salt solution और भी ज़्यादा concentrated होता है. Okay, same thing happens with the dry raisins as well. Okay, after that हमने देखा कि हमारा plasma membrane जो है वो flexible है and that is made up of organic molecule called as lipids and proteins, and we can observe the structure of the plasma membrane only through an electron microscope. And as I told you that plasma membrane is flexible, उसकी जो flexibility है that enables the cell that it can engulf the food as well as other material from its external environment, and this process we call it as endocytosis. क्या बोलते हैं हम? Endocytosis. And amoeba जो है that acquires its food through the process of endocytosis by engulfing the food because it is flexible. Okay, then we discussed on cell wall जहाँ पे हमने देखा that plant cell in addition to the plasma membrane, अब plant cells के पास along with this cell membrane they have cell wall as well. So cell wall is a rigid outer covering, okay, which is outside the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane के बाहर क्या होता है हमारा cell wall, and this cell wall is mostly composed of cellulose. अब cellulose क्या है exactly? सेल्यूलोज एक कॉम्प्लेक्स सब्सटेंस है जो किसी भी सेल को या किसी भी प्लांट को एक स्ट्रक्चरल स्ट्रेंथ प्रोवाइड करता है. क्या प्रोवाइड करता है सेल्यूलोज? स्ट्रक्चरल स्ट्रेंथ प्रोवाइड करेगा. ओके, सो सपोज व्हेन अ लिविंग प्लांट इट लूजेस द वाटर थ्रू ऑस्मोसिस, यू विल सी कि देयर इज श्रिंकेज और कॉन्ट्रैक्शन. क्या होगा? there will be shrinkage or contraction because the living plant is losing the water, right? So because the content of the cell is moving away from the cell wall, and ये phenomenon को हम बोलते हैं plasmolysis. क्या बोलते हैं? Plasmolysis. Now you can see the cell wall का structure which has been labeled here in this diagram. This outer hard outer covering is called the cell wall. Okay, then we discussed on this activity where you need to take a leafy leaf, उसको उसका like peel off करो, दोनों को पुल करो, एंड देन यू हैव दिस लीफ पील विच हैज़ बीन अवेलेबल. अब आप एक पेट्री डिश के अंदर वाटर लेके इस लीफ पील का छोटा छोटा अमाउंट डाल दो. नाउ यू हैव टू टेक वन पीस फ्रॉम दिस पेट्री डिश ऑन टू अ स्लाइड. उस पर कवर स्लिप डालो एंड देन ऑब्जर्व दैट अंडर द माइक्रोस्कोप एंड यू विल सी दिस टोमाटा guard cells and leaf cells which are present inside this leaf. Okay, so plant cells also have this. And the next component that we discussed on, and remember one thing, that plant cells only have the cell wall, animal cells do not have cell wall. Okay, then we have this nucleus where you can see that the nuclear envelope, two types of nuclear envelopes are present. First is called as the outer nuclear membrane and the second one is called as the inner nuclear membrane. क्या है? Outer nuclear membrane and inner nuclear membrane. Then we have this chromatin. अभी chromatin आगे जाके किस में condense करेगा? Chromosome में, right? So this is how chromatin looks like, thread-like structure. And just below chromatin we have a nucleolus which is present in the center. And these are the nuclear pores which are present. और ये nuclear pores के through जो भी nutrient है that enters inside the cell. And this is the rough endoplasmic reticulum which is having ribosomes on it. Now we are going to discuss further on this rough endoplasmic reticulum. That time you will get a clear idea on it. Okay, so in a cell, if the cell is not dividing, now we are going to discuss on cell division as well later. That is about mitosis and meiosis. बट यर अगर कोई सेल डिवाइड नहीं कर रहा तो उसके अंदर एक डीएनए प्रेजेंट होगा एंड डीएनए के अंदर एक क्रोमैटिन मटेरियल प्रेजेंट होगा. कैन यू सी दिस ब्लू कलर? दिस इज द क्रोमैटिन मटेरियल. सो डीएनए के अंदर क्या है? डीएनए हैज दिस क्रोमैटिन मटेरियल एंड ये क्रोमैटिन मटेरियल जो है दैट इज गोइंग टू बी विजिबल एज एन एंटैकल्ड मास ऑफ थ्रेड लाइक स्ट्रक्चर. क्रोमैटिन मटेरियल कैसे विजिबल होगा? As an entangled mass of, it looks like a thread like structure which get further condensed into a chromosome. Okay, so whenever the cell is about to divide, जब भी सेल डिवाइड करता है क्या होगा? ये जो क्रोमैटिन मटेरियल है वो खुद को ऑर्गेनाइज करेगा क्रोमोसोम के अंदर. सो नाउ वी हैव अ न्यूक्लियाई विच हैज अ स्पेशलाइज्ड पार्ट ऑफ सर्टेन क्रोमोसोम. क्या है हमारे पास अब? वी आर हैविंग अ न्यूक्लियाई जिसके पास स्पेशलाइज्ड पार्ट है क्रोमोसोम का, दैट इज गोइंग टू कैरी मल्टीपल कॉपीज ऑफ डीएनए. ठीक है, न्यूक्लियाई के पास क्या है? क्रोमोसोम है. क्रोमोसोम क्या करेगा? डीएनए के मल्टीपल कॉपीज को कैरी करेगा एंड इट इज गोइंग टू सिंथेसाइज दिस राइबोसोमल आरएनए. ठीक है, डीएनए का मल्टीपल कॉपीज मिला एंड नाउ डीएनए इज गोइंग टू सिंथेसाइज दिस आरएनए दैट इज राइबोसोमल आरएनए. ओके, see, nucleus has a double layered covering which we call it as nuclear membrane. Can you see the nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope? So it has a double membrane covering which is called as outer nuclear membrane and inner nuclear membrane. Okay, so nuclear membrane also had certain pores, nuclear pores, which allows the transfer of material from inside the nucleus to the outside, that is to the cytoplasm. So can you see this nuclear pores which are present on the nucleus inside the cell? अब cell के अंदर जो भी चीज़ है they are going to come out from this nuclear pores and they are going to move out to the cytoplasm. So cytoplasm पे we are going to discuss, okay, in this session 5.2.4. So the nucleus के अंदर अब क्या क्या होता है? Nucleus has a chromosome. क्या है न्यूक्लियस के पास? क्रोमोसोम है एंड दिस क्रोमोसोम्स they are visible as a rod shaped structure only when the cell is about to divide. तो जब सेल डिवाइड नहीं करता उस टाइम हमें क्रोमोसोम जो है वो क्रोमोसोम नहीं दिखता. वी गेट टू सी दैट क्रोमैटिन मटेरियल, थ्रेड लाइक क्रोमैटिन देखने मिलता है. बट वंस द सेल इज अबाउट टू डिवाइड, व्हाट हैपेंस? वी कैन सी दैट दिस न्यूक्लियस इज गोइंग टू हैव अ क्रोमोसोम जो रॉड शेप्ड होगा and this rod shaped structure of the chromosome is only visible when the cell is about to divide. Okay, so chromosome जो है, chromosome के पास कुछ ऐसा information है like जो भी हमें characters मिलते हैं हमारे पेरेंट्स से, like आपको कभी कभी कोई बोलता है that your nose is like your mama, your eyes are like your dad. So ये सारे क्या है? These are the inheritance characters which are being passed from your parents to you. ठीक है, तो पेरेंट्स से नेक्स्ट जनरेशन के अंदर जो भी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स पास ऑन होते हैं दैट पासेस इन द फॉर्म ऑफ डीएनए. ओके, एंड ये क्रोमोसोम के अंदर ही डीएनए होता है, राइट? एंड डीएनए स्टैंड्स फॉर व्हाट? डीऑक्सी राइबो न्यूक्लिक एसिड मॉलिक्यूल. तो आपको पता है जो क्रोमोसोम है, आई विल ड्रॉ दैट थिंग. Chromosome is an egg-shaped structure, okay, which is having a P arm, Q arm and a centromere. But now that is not the concern. आपको पता है ये क्रोमोसोम बनता कैसे है? जब डीएनए की कॉइलिंग होती है, द कॉइलिंग ऑफ द डीएनए मेक्स द क्रोमोसोम. ऐसे ऐसे करके जब डीएनए कॉइल करता है तब जाके क्रोमोसोम बनता है. Okay, so this is how the chromosome is made up of. And chromosome and DNA के through what happens? All the क्या बोलते हैं, inheritance, the inherent characters are been passed from parents to the next generation. Okay, and ये chromosome किससे composed होता है? Chromosome is made up of DNA and protein. किससे बना है chromosome? DNA and protein से. Now DNA contains information which is necessary for constructing and organizing the cell. अब सेल को कंस्ट्रक्ट करने में और सेल को ऑर्गेनाइज करने में जो भी मॉलिक्यूल्स नेसेसरी होते हैं, डीएनए मॉलिक्यूल हैड दैट इंफॉर्मेशन. sorry, not molecule, information. जो भी information necessary होगा, DNA had that information, and now the DNA is going to construct as well as organize that cell. Okay, so जो DNA का functional segment होता है, the segment of the DNA we call it as genes. क्या बोलते हैं हम? Segment of the DNA is called as the gene. And in a cell which is not dividing, now as I told you, अगर cell divide नहीं करता तो we have the chromatin fiber, but once the cell starts to divide we have the chromosome, right? So in a cell which is not dividing, this DNA is going to present as a part of chromatin fiber. तो अगर cell divide नहीं कर रहा तो DNA कैसा present होगा? As a part of chromatin material. Okay, and this chromatin material is visible as an entangled mass of thread-like structure. Chromatin कैसे available है या visible है? It is visible as an entangled mass of thread-like structure. Okay, तो whenever the cell is about to divide, जब भी cell divide करेगा, chromatin खुद को condense करता है into chromosome. जैसे chromosome divide करेगा, chromatin material क्या organize करेगा खुद को as a chromosome, and here the nucleus plays a central role in cellular reproduction. Cellular reproduction में सबसे important role किसका है? Nucleus का है, because you can say cellular reproduction में कौन help कर रहा है? Nucleus help कर रहा है by the process by which a single cell divides and it forms two new cell. So cellular reproduction में nucleus help कैसे कर रहा है? By dividing a single cell so that a single cell can form two new cells, and this is how cell जो है reproduce करेंगे and the number of cell increases. So nucleus also plays a crucial part along with the environment in determining the way the cell will develop and what form it will exhibit at maturity. अब न्यूक्लियस का और एक क्रूशियल रोल क्या है उनके एनवायरनमेंट में, कि वो एक वे डिटरमाइन करे जिसके थ्रू द सेल इज गोइंग टू डेवलप एंड इट इज गोइंग टू फॉर्म whatever a different form the cell is forming, whatever it is going to exhibit during its maturity, all the thing has been determined by the nucleus itself, as well as the nucleus is going to direct the chemical activities of the cell. क्या करेगा nucleus? It is going to direct the chemical activities of the cell. Okay, so in some organisms like bacteria, ठीक है, बैक्टीरिया जैसे ऑर्गेनिजम्स में क्या होता है? द न्यूक्लियर रीजन ऑफ द सेल, क्या न्यूक्लियर रीजन ऑफ द सेल इट मे बी पुअरली डिफाइंड. अगर हम बैक्टीरिया की बात करें तो बैक्टीरिया में न्यूक्लियर रीजन पुअरली डिफाइंड होता है बिकॉज उनके पास न्यूक्लियर मेम्ब्रेन ही नहीं है. किसके पास नहीं है? बैक्टीरिया के पास न्यूक्लियर मेम्ब्रेन नहीं है. दैट इज वाई दे आर पुअरली डिफाइंड. And such an undefined nuclear region containing only nucleic acid, तो ऐसे undefined nuclear region को जिसके पास सिर्फ न्यूक्लिक एसिड होता है उसको हम बोलते हैं न्यूक्लियोइड. न्यूक्लिक एसिड मीन्स DNA and RNA. So the nuclear region which is having the DNA and RNA but it doesn't have this nuclear membrane, so that is called as nucleoid. And such organism whose cells lack a nuclear membrane, they are called as prokaryotes. So as I have told you that prokaryotes के पास nuclear membrane नहीं होता, but eukaryotes have this nuclear membrane. So prokaryotes में pro का meaning is primitive or primary, and karyotes means karyon, which means nucleus. So they have a primitive nucleus. Okay, so they don't have a nuclear membrane because पहले का जो nucleus था that was not well developed. Evolution की वजह से there are many changes which are coming up. But earlier it was not so, right? So that is the reason prokaryotes का nuclear membrane नहीं होता. They lack this nuclear membrane and they are called as nucleoid. And the organism with cells having a nuclear membrane, they are called as eukaryotes. So eukaryotes का nuclear membrane जो है, because they have this nuclear membrane which is well developed. Okay, so eukaryotes and prokaryotes का ये भी एक differentiating point है. Okay, now see, we are going to discuss on the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. Now this figure which you can see in 5.4, this is a prokaryotic cell which is having a cell wall. It is having a plasma membrane as well, that is the cell membrane. It is having rhizomes and nucleoid in the center. And if you want to see the tail part which you can see here, this is the flagella, but we are not going to discuss on this because हम क्या पढ़ रहे हैं? We are discussing on the components of the cell. So we are not going to discuss on that. Okay, so prokaryotic cell, they almost lack most of the other cytoplasmic organelles which are present in the eukaryotic cell. Now when you compare between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, you will see that this prokaryotic cell now, they lack many of the organelles which are present, many of the cytoplasmic organelle which are present in this eukaryotic cell. Okay, so many of the functions of such organelles, they are also being provided by. Okay, so many of the functions of such organelles, they are also performed by poorly organized parts of the cytoplasm. Now their cytoplasm is also not well developed. They have a poorly organized cytoplasm ka part, and that is the reason the organelles are not able to perform their functions properly. Okay, that you are going to see that in the other diagram. So the chlorophyll in photosynthetic prokaryotic bacteria. Now we have certain prokaryotic bacteria and they undergo this photosynthetic process. So the chlorophyll that they are having inside the bacteria, that is associated with the membranous vesicle, that is a bag like structure but not with the plastids in an as an eukaryotic cell. Now eukaryotic cells may we have this plastids which are present and then it has chloroplast and chlorophyll, but in prokaryotic bacteria this is not the case. Prokaryotic bacteria is not associated with these plastids, they are associated with the membranous vesicle. And this membranous vesicle, it looks like it is a bag like structure which is present. Okay. I want you to draw this prokaryotic cell in your notebook fast. Okay, so the next component that we have the cytoplasm. So cytoplasm जो है that is a fluid. Okay, so let's see what exactly it has been given here about cytoplasm. See, when we look at the temporary mount of onion peel as well as human chick cells, तो अगर हम अनियन पील का जो टेम्पररी माउंट हमने बनाया था क्लास स्लाइड पे, जब हम वो देखते हैं एंड वी go through this human cheek cells, we can see that there is a large region of each cell which is enclosed by a cell membrane. क्या देखेंगे हम कि there is a large, you can say, large region of cell जो enclosed होता है. किससे enclosed होता है? It is being enclosed by the cell membrane. Now you know what the cell membrane is, right? Cell membrane is also called as what? It is also called as the plasma membrane. So it is enclosed by this cell membrane, and this region, it takes up very little stain. तो ये जो region है, that takes up only a little stain, and we call it as what? We call it as a cytoplasm. क्या बोलेंगे? Cytoplasm बोलेंगे. Okay. See, the cytoplasm is the fluid content inside the plasma membrane. तो प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन के अंदर का जो फ्लूइड कंटेंट होता है उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? We call that as cytoplasm, and cytoplasm is not an organelle, it is a fluid. Now how I was made understood about this cytoplasm is, you know, we have different organelles. जैसे कि हमारे पास अंदर क्या है, we have you can say we have mitochondria, we have endoplasmic reticulum, we have Golgi body. You're going to study all that things. तो वो सारे cells के ऊपर कैसे होते हैं? So you can just remember कि cytoplasm एक fluid है, and that is a sticky fluid. तो because of this cytoplasm which is existing inside the cell, सारे organelles जो है they stick onto that cell. Okay, so cytoplasm is clearly understood from this concept कि सारे organelles they are sticking onto the cell because of this cytoplasm. Okay, then this cytoplasm, it also contains many specialized cell organelle. क्या होता है cytoplasm के पास? बहुत सारे specialized cell organelles present होते हैं, and each of these organelles they perform a specific function for the cell. तो हर एक organelle क्या करते हैं? हर एक organelles they are going to perform a specific function for our cell. Okay, now we all know that our body has different functions to perform, and cell is one of such thing that is helping our body in performing those functions, right? So to perform those functions, who is helping the cell? This organelles, and this organelles, where are they present? They are present in the cytoplasm. So cell organelles, they are enclosed by the membrane. Cell organelles are enclosed by what? They are enclosed by the membrane, and in prokaryotes, beside the absence of undefined nuclear region, अभी हमें पता है prokaryotes के पास nuclear region नहीं है. So along with that, prokaryotes also don't have this membrane bound cell organelles. Prokaryotes के पास क्या नहीं है? They don't have membrane bound cell organelle with them. Okay. तो आपको यहाँ पे दो चीज़ पता चलती है कि प्रोकैरियोट्स के पास न्यूक्लियर रीजन भी नहीं है, as well as prokaryotes के पास along with this nuclear region they also don't have this membrane bound cell organelle. Okay. Okay, so on the other hand, this was all about prokaryotes. Other hand क्या होता है? With respect to eukaryotic cells, they have nuclear membrane as well as they have this membrane closed organelle. तो eukaryotes के पास nuclear membrane भी है, and they are having this membrane closed organelle as well. So this is one of the differentiating point that you know with respect to you can say prokaryotes and eukaryotes, right? See, the significance of membranes they can be illustrated with the help of viruses. अगर membranes का significance illustrate करना है, so we can illustrate that with the help of enzyme as well here. So viruses जो है, not enzymes, viruses, right? So viruses जो होते हैं, viruses they lack any membrane. ठीक है, viruses के पास एक भी membrane नहीं होते, they lack this membrane, and hence they do not show characteristics of life. Why do the viruses do not show any characteristics of life? Because they don't have this, and because they don't have any membranes which are present inside them. So how they are going to show that characteristics of life until they are entering a living body and using its cell machinery to multiply. तो viruses जब हमारे body के अंदर आते हैं to infect us, that time they use their machinery and they multiply, okay? But before that it doesn't happen so. ठीक है? So virus is one such example. तो virus active कब होता है? When it enters inside a living body. Unless and until it is not entering the living body, it is not able to multiply itself. It needs a living body for its multiplication and to show the characteristics of life. Okay. Now we are going to start with the cell organelles. So we have different cell organelles to discuss on. First of all, we have this endoplasmic reticulum. Then we have Golgi apparatus to discuss. After Golgi apparatus, we have lysosomes, mitochondria, vacuoles, plastids, okay, and then cell division. So maybe in the next part we will complete with this lesson if possible, okay. Now let's see what exactly the cell organelle is. This is the diagram which you need to draw when you are discussing with respect to cell organelle, okay. So every cell has a membrane around it to keep its own content separate from the external environment. अब खुद के कंटेंट को एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट से सेपरेट रखने के लिए हर एक सेल के पास एक खुद का मेम्ब्रेन होता है. क्या होता है? एक खुद का मेम्ब्रेन होता है, सो दैट इट कैन कीप इट्स सेल और इट कैन कीप इट्स कंटेंट separate from its external environment. Okay, so large and complex cells including the cell from multicellular organism. अब लार्ज और जो कॉम्प्लेक्स सेल्स होते हैं, यहाँ पे वी कैन इंक्लूड द सेल्स ऑफ द मल्टीसेलुलर ऑर्गेनिजम्स एज वेल, because we are complex animal, and the type of cells that we have in our body, that is also complex. So when we consider this multicellular organism, we need a lot of chemical activities. क्या चाहिए हमें? We need a lot of chemical activities so that we can support the complicated structure and function. Because our cells, they are complex, उनके जो chemical activities होंगे, they are also going to be complex, right? So to support that complicated structure and function, हमें बहुत सारे chemical activities, हमारे cells जो है they are performing बहुत सारे chemical activities together. Okay, so to keep these activities of different kinds separate from each other, अब सबको अपनी अपनी activities को separate करके चलना है. To keep all the activities separate from each other, to have their own content separate from each other, what they have, these cells, they use a membrane bound little structure which we call it as organelles within themselves. तो ये सारे यू कैन से अपने कंटेंट को सेपरेट रखने के लिए, केमिकल एक्टिविटीज़ सपोर्ट करने के लिए वो क्या करते हैं, दे हैव सर्टन थिंग्स विद इन देमसेल्फ विच इज़ कॉल्ड एज अ मेम्ब्रेन बाउंड लिटिल स्ट्रक्चर, जिसको हम ऑर्गेनल्स बोलते हैं, एंड दे कीप देम विद इन देमसेल्फ so that all the activities are performed, and these activities, they are not intermixing with each other. Okay, so this is one of the feature of eukaryotic cell that distinguish them from the prokaryotic cell. So ये organelles, as I told you that the prokaryotic cells, they do not have this membrane bound cell organelles, whereas eukaryotic cells, they have membrane bound cell organelle, right? So these are the features of the eukaryotic cell जो प्रोकैरियोटिक सेल को और यूकैरियोटिक सेल को एक तरह से डिफरेंशिएट करता है द प्रेजेंस ऑफ द मेम्ब्रेन बाउंड सेल ऑर्गेनल. ओके, so some of these organelles they are visible only with an electron microscope. Now cell का structure study करना that is also possible because of the electron microscope. but अगर हमें cell के बारे में और भी ज़्यादा डिटेल में study करना है, then we need to have this electron microscope with us, because if you can see the diagram or the structure which is given for this cell organelle, you can see that they have shown you the nucleus, the nucleolus, nuclear pore, mitochondria. This is the lysosomes which are present, and this is the Golgi body. This is the centrioles which are present. Now the centrioles they are again absent in the plant cell, or you can say, and they are present in the animal cell, or they are absent in prokaryotes and they are present in eukaryotes. It is like that. Okay, then we have this microtubules which are being present near the mitochondria. We have smooth endoplasmic reticulum, we have rough endoplasmic reticulum, we have ribosomes on our nucleus. Okay, so whenever you are writing an answer on cell organelle, drawing this diagram is very much important, because this is the basic structure of the cell which has been given. Can you see? It has been labeled as cell. So cell has different cell organelles, and these are the different cell organelles which are present. So whenever you are writing an answer on cell organelles, compulsorily this diagram is necessary, where you need to draw the nucleus, nucleolus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, rough endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Then we have microtubule, lysosomes. Okay, you need to draw everything. Now we have talked about the nucleus in the previous session, and some important examples of cell organelles which we will discuss now are. Now some of the important cell organelles, nucleus is also one of the important cell organelle that we have. But other than nucleus, we also have some other cell organelles to discuss. So here in this lesson, or here in this part cell organelle, we are going to discuss on different cell organelles like endoplasmic reticulum पे discuss करेंगे. Then we are going to discuss on Golgi apparatus. We have lysosomes, mitochondria, and plastids to discuss. So these are certain different cell organelles which we are having, and we are going to discuss it in the next part itself. And these cell organelles, they are important because they carry out some very crucial functions in the cell. Why is this cell organelle important? Because वो हमारे बॉडी के अंदर कुछ crucial functions perform करते हैं, and that is the reason that they are important for us. Okay. So what did we discuss today? We have discussed on nucleus, cytoplasm, and now cell organelle में we are going to discuss on this endoplasmic reticulum today. Endoplasmic reticulum को you can even represent that as ER, but you should know that ER का full form is endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, now let's see how this endoplasmic reticulum look like. So this is an animal cell and this is the plant cell that we have. So अगर आप देख रहे हो that animal cell and plant cell they both have this smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum which can be seen, right? So आपको ये animal cell and plant cell का diagram भी 2 टाइम बनाना है अपने notebook में. Now the diagram which you can see on the screen is bit difficult, right? So what you can do is you can just Google it out and you will find a simpler structure on animal cell and plant cell. And if you draw that as well, that is also okay, that is also going to give you the marks, because the most important thing, okay, the most important thing that you need to show in the plant and animal cell. अब एक चीज़ है आपको एनिमल सेल में सेल वॉल नहीं दिखाना, बट आपको प्लांट सेल में सेल वॉल शो करना है. सो यू हैव टू नो दिस थिंग्स दैट व्हाट टू शो एंड व्हाट नॉट टू शो इन द प्लांट सेल एंड एनिमल सेल. सो एनिमल सेल्स के पास सेंट्रियोल होता है, बट प्लांट cells do not have that centriole. So you can't show the centriole in the plant cell. You will lose your marks there, right? So you need to take care of this कि आप plant cell में क्या show कर रहे हो, animal cell में क्या show कर रहे हो. That is important. Drawing this complex structure is not important. Drawing what exactly is needed, that is important. You'll get the marks. So you can go to Google and you can find a simple diagram as well जहाँ पे आप mitochondria draw कर दो, ribosome draw कर दो, and you will get the marks there. No worries on that. Okay. Now endoplasmic reticulum I was showing you. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and here we have रफ एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम. एंड यहाँ पे देखो न्यूक्लियस के आसपास ही होता है एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम. आई विल शो यू द डायग्राम. हाँ, यहाँ पे अच्छे से दिखाया हुआ है. सी दिस इज द रफ एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम दैट वी आर हैविंग. ओके, एंड उसके पीछे ही आप देखोगे स्मूथ एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम है. सो वी आर डिस्कसिंग ऑन एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम टुडे. सो द एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम दैट इज ER is a large network of membrane bound tubes and sheets. ER क्या है? It is a large network of membrane bound tubes and sheets. Can you see? Those looks like tubes as well, right? So endoplasmic reticulum is a large network of membrane bound tubes and sheets. And this ER, endoplasmic reticulum, it looks like long tubule or round or oblong bags which are also called as vesicles. The endoplasmic reticulums कैसे दिखते हैं? They look like long tubules or they are round or oblong bags which are seen there. Okay, so endoplasmic reticulum membrane that is similar to the structure of the plasma membrane. तो ER membrane किससे जैसे similar है? ER membrane is similar to the plasma membrane. Okay, and we have two different types of endoplasmic reticulum. First is rough endoplasmic reticulum, that is RER, and second is smooth endoplasmic reticulum, that is SER. So don't forget this basic point. We have two different types of endoplasmic reticulum. First is rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So when we look this rough endoplasmic reticulum under a microscope, it looks rough. Why? रफ एंडोप्लाज्मिक रेटिकुलम इसको क्यों बोला गया है? इट इज़ रफ बिकॉज इट हैज़ पार्टिकल्स which are called as ribosomes which are attached to it. Now if you see the rough endoplasmic reticulum here, उसके ऊपर ribosomes attached है, and that is why this type of endoplasmic reticulum becomes rough because of the attachment of the ribosomes on it. Okay, so the ribosomes which are present in all active cells, they are the site of protein manufacture. Ribosomes important क्यों है हमारे cells में? Because they are a site of protein manufacture. Ribosomes help in manufacturing the protein. So whatever manufactured protein that we get from the ribosome, we send that to various places in the cell depending on need using the endoplasmic reticulum. तो जो भी प्रोटीन यहाँ पे manufactured होगा, हम उस प्रोटीन को एक्टिव सेल्स के अंदर भेजेंगे so that वो मैन्युफैक्चर्ड प्रोटीन को हम अलग अलग प्लेसेस में भेजेंगे सेल्स के अंदर डिपेंडिंग अपॉन वेर एवर द प्रोटीन्स आर बिन नीडेड, एंड दिस like we are going to send that using this endoplasmic reticulum. So this was about the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, it helps in the manufacture of fat molecule, lipids, and it is very much important for the cell function. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum क्यों important है? Cell के function के लिए and for manufacturing the fat molecule and the lipids. Okay, so some of the proteins and the lipids that we get from this smooth endoplasmic reticulum, they help in building the cell membrane. किस में help करते हैं? हमें cell membrane build करने में help करेंगे, and we call this process as membrane biogenesis. क्या बोलेंगे हम इस process को? Membrane biogenesis. Okay, so some other proteins and lipids, they function as enzymes and hormones as well. ठीक है, तो ये proteins और lipids कैसे function करते हैं? They function as enzymes and hormones, and although the endoplasmic reticulum that varies greatly, आप देखोगे कि endoplasmic reticulum जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा different होता है with respect to the cells that they are having. It always forms a network system. Endoplasmic reticulum क्या form करेगा? एक network system form करेगा. Okay, so thus one function of this endoplasmic reticulum is to serve as a channel. Now what kind of channel? For transporting the material that it is having. ठीक है, कौन सा material? Specially proteins, and this protein has been transported between the various region of the cytoplasm और between the cytoplasm and the nucleus. Okay, कहाँ पे ट्रांसपोर्ट होगा ये मटेरियल? एक या तो फिर ये साइटोप्लाज्म के बीच में होगा, between the cytoplasm and the nucleus, और in the region of the cytoplasm only. Okay, so the endoplasmic reticulum that also functions as a cytoplasmic framework, कैसे फंक्शन करता है ये? साइटोप्लाज्मिक फ्रेमवर्क, एंड दिस साइटोप्लाज्मिक फ्रेमवर्क इट प्रोवाइड्स अ सरफेस फॉर सम ऑफ द बायोकेमिकल एक्टिविटीज ऑफ द सेल. साइटोप्लाज्मिक फ्रेमवर्क क्या प्रोवाइड करता है? हमें एक सरफेस प्रोवाइड करता है विच इज नीडेड फॉर दिस बायोकेमिकल एक्टिविटीज ऑफ द सेल. ओके, सो व्हेन इट कम्स टू लीगल सेल, किसकी? When it comes to legal cells, liver cells, there we have group of animals called as vertebrates, and there this smooth endoplasmic reticulum, it plays a crucial role, an important role in detoxifying many poisons and the drug. ठीक है? For what they help in? What are we going to do? Like SCR, that is smooth endoplasmic reticulum जो है, that is very much important for detoxifying the poisons and the drugs in the liver cells. Okay, now the next thing about the Golgi apparatus, we will discuss that in the next part. I hope you are clear with whatever we have discussed today in this part. Okay, so in the next class we are going to discuss on the Golgi apparatus. We will be discussing on lysosomes, mitochondria, plastids, vacuoles, and then lastly we have this cell division to discuss on, where we will be discussing on the mitosis and meiosis process in detail, and lastly we will be having a summary of what things we have learned in this lesson, fundamental unit of life. After that we have 10 questions to discuss, where the first question is to give a comparison between the plant cell and the animal cell. Second question is distinguish between the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. Then the third question is what will happen if the plasma membrane ruptures or if it breaks down? Okay. Then what will happen to the cell life of a cell if there was no Golgi apparatus? अगर Golgi apparatus नहीं होगा तो cell की life को क्या होगा? Then which organelle do we call it as the powerhouse of the cell, and why do we call that organelle as the powerhouse of the cell? Then where do the lipids and proteins constituting the cell membrane they get synthesized, and how does an amoeba obtain its food? What is osmosis? Experiment. And the last question is which type of cell division is required for the growth and repair of the body, and which type is involved in the formation of gamete? Now most of the questions ka answer you already know, so we will be discussing on this all 10 questions in the last when we complete with everything. Okay, so I hope that whatever has been discussed today in this part has been clear to you. We are going to continue with the rest of the part for this lesson, fundamental unit of life. Now this lesson is speaking all about the cell, so I hope जैसे आपको आपके बॉडी के बारे में कुछ नॉलेज है, वैसे आपको आपके सेल्स के ऊपर भी कुछ नॉलेज हो. ओके, so we will continue with the rest of the part for this lesson in the next class. Thank you everyone.